The screen flickered to a colossal hovercraft, the narrator exclaiming, "Our enforcers and technologies indestructible." I had seen the photoplay a million times, and I was still not convinced that the technology actually existed. The photoplay changed to Zine Tane, the current head of state, shaking hands with his second. They were on the balcony of the vast capital that dwarfed the surrounding structures. "Our supreme leaders guiding our way." The image dissolved. Now dominating the screen was a giant gray flag with a gray monochrome double helix woven into it. "Our technology superlative!" I tried tuning out the noise, only bits and pieces coming through as I sat there for an eternity, until images of disfigured children flashed across the screen. The narrator bloviated, "We've dedicated our lives to genetics technology and bettering the lives of our citizens. The children are heavily modified, kept safe from the danger they pose to each other and themselves." Really? How is this horrific abuse twisted into them keeping us safe? "All thanks to the man our state is proudly named after, James Tryon." The photoplay morphed into a large image of James Tryon working on an anatomic machine. James Tryon was truly a visionary. He found a way to solve several problems at once with his breakthrough innovations in genetics, igniting our extraordinary evolution. I was disgusted as the narrator sang his praises. When it was finally over, the teacher stepped in front of the screen. "Now, let's explore. If you have any questions, you must raise your knee." During my next course, I couldn't force myself to pay any attention to the boring lecture because something else was on my mind. One row to my left, and one terminal up, was a girl. Even though we were all identically dressed, I still recognized her. She was in all my courses except one, and I'd had plenty of time to memorize her number. G1284 was engraved on her ID anklet, but after hearing another girl say her name just once, I had only ever thought of her as Scarlet. I noticed her the very first day of quarter, but I hadn't even spoken to her yet. In just a matter of days, I was sick. Lovesick. Extremely lovesick over a girl who I didn't even know. She was just so fascinating. I'd hear her going over her notes and think that even her modulated voice was perfect. I just couldn't get Scarlet out of my mind. Paying attention to teachers was already hard enough since I despised everything about my education, but being near Scarlet made it so much harder. It took all my concentration just to keep myself from staring at her too long during course. Even though the punishment would be severe, I just barely managed it. The interval tone signaled and I realized that I'd missed the entire lecture. Again. During midday break, I went to an open terminal to quickly scan my notes. I took a minute and cleared my mind, digging deep, struggling to remember the lecture. I quietly dictated everything I could recall. Turns out, I was better at multitasking than I thought. It also helped that every course teaches us the same propaganda every single day. Through the crowd of students, I saw Scarlet and two girls walking by. I quickly logged off the terminal and followed Scarlet, staying a safe distance behind so she wouldn't notice me. They soon came to a stop at a set of terminals, Scarlet speaking commands in between her whisper-quiet conversation with the other students. I stopped too, turning to another terminal, pretending to work and hoping she didn't catch me listening in. I paid close attention, hoping to get an idea of what Scarlet was really like. I was ecstatic when I heard Scarlet giving kind advice to one of the other girls. I smiled to myself. I just knew she was beautiful, inside and out. It wasn't long before the other girls drifted away in that girly way girls do. Scarlet went back to her terminal, and I wished that it would malfunction just so I'd have an excuse to talk to her. I'd walk over and offer her my help, but nothing went wrong and she didn't need saving. My attention stayed glued to her, taking the opportunity to really admire her. I was totally mesmerized. Her every movement was beautiful. Every inflection of her modulated voice was fascinating to me. I thought she was beautiful, too perfect and sweet for a world like ours. She was so pretty it almost hurt to look at her, as if she floated down like a dream. I hoped to see her beautiful face someday, but a lot can happen in 4 years. That thought upset me, and I seriously wanted to go talk to her, but I was so shy I didn't think that I could actually get a coherent word out. I would have taken a deep breath if I had the ability. Since I couldn't, I took a mental breath instead, before gathering my courage and slowly approaching Scarlet. I stopped within whispering distance, shyly offering,
"Hi."
Scarlet turned her body toward me, whispering,
"Oh, hey, how are you?"
Her friendly tone eased my nerves as I whispered back,
"Good. You?"
Even though she whispered, Scarlet's voice was bubbly.
"I'm good. What's up?"
I spread my legs slightly, our way of shrugging.
"Just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I'm Scarlet. Jared, right?"
I tried whispering as smoothly as possible.
"Yeah."
She knows my real name. My hopes of becoming friends with Scarlet had just infinitely increased. Attempting to continue the conversation, I whispered,
"You done?"
Scarlet logged off the terminal before quietly giggling.
"I am now. You?"
The dim lights of my speaker pulsed with my response.
"Yeah. Wanna walk to course?"
Sure.
My attention was drawn to Scarlet's shiny speaker. It flickered with pale, almost silver light as she spoke. I felt like I could actually see colors in the rhythm of her voice.
Jared?"
I snapped back to reality and got moving.
"Yeah, let's go."
As we walked, she whispered teased,
"So, does this mean we're friends now?" "Yeah, I mean, if you want." "Oh, I don't know. I have lots of friends."
She actually laughed quietly, tapping my knee with hers, and hope flourished in my heart as she whispered,
"I'm kidding. We're friends."
I laughed nervously, whispering back,
"Wanna go over notes during next midday break?"
Sure.
We stopped in front of our next course, just as the interval tone signaled. Before moving to the girls' line, Scarlet dipped her knees and whispered,
"See you later."
I hated letting her go, whispering back just to have another second with her.
"You too."
I never really had a friend before. I hoped I didn't mess this up, because I was bound to do something idiotic. I thought about it all through the next course and barely heard a word the teacher said. After courses were dismissed, Penny and I met at the square. She cheerfully bounced on the balls of her feet, whispering,
My day was great. How about you?
I was still in shock.
"It was good."
I'd actually gotten up the nerve to speak to Scarlet. It was more than good, but I didn't tell Penny any of that. Instead, I whispered,
"How was yours?"
Great! I just told you.
Right. I mean, did you get permission to express in pink? Penny swiveled, looking around. The cheerfulness in her voice had faded.
No, they said it was inappropriate and wasteful.
I'm sorry. Penny dipped her knees.
It's okay.
She quickly swiveled again before whispering,
I still have that rock at home.
I was always amazed at how she could see the bright side of everything. I wish I was more like her. We filed onto the transport, and the annoyed adult buckled me a little too tightly. Penny noticed, but neither of us said a word. The droning speakers were overwhelming, and I really missed her loud, sunny jabbering. When the adult was gone, she wouldn't stop talking, but kept her voice hushed and only talked about courses. I was conflicted. I knew she had to understand how things really were, but I hated the thought of her losing her bliss and wonder. Mine had been ripped from me long before I was her age, and I dreaded the day she felt how I feel. We exited the transport, and she spoke more freely as we walked to our front door. I liked that much better. I tapped the door several times before it opened. Aunt Lucy was on the other side. She might have been considered pretty if I didn't know her so well. She narrowed her eyes at us in disgust, stepping out of the doorway and snarling through clenched teeth. Come in. Aunt Lucy locked the door behind us as Penny asked,
When's Mom coming back?
Aunt Lucy made her irritation very clear, glaring, Not soon enough. She crossed her arms angrily. Trust me, I don't want to be here either. I turned to her, defiantly pushing even though I knew the answer. Why? Just as I asked, my cousin William started crying pitifully. He was tiny, barely a month old, helpless and still showed no mercy. I felt so sorry for him. Not only did he suffer from painful genetic modification, but he had heartless Aunt Lucy for a mother. Aunt Lucy let out another disgusted sigh before stomping to William. But instead of comforting him, she just disabled his speaker and walked away. I stared down at William on the floor, wishing there was something I could do to soothe him. It was horrible. Even though there wasn't any sound, he was still crying and squirming in pain. I knew it had to be his waste disposals, because they don't perfectly tie into our intestines or bladder, especially when we're young. I still remember how bad mine hurt when I was little. They still do, I'm just used to it now. Poor William is so small and fragile. It must be unbearable for him. It took several agonizing minutes before he cried himself to sleep, and I felt so helpless. I stood there, sad and angry, before I stomped to confront Aunt Lucy, demanding, "Why do you treat him that way?" She scowled at me, spitting. "Because I hate him?" She shoved to her feet, snarling at me. "If your mom would let me, I'd shut you and your sister up too." I wanted to scream at her, but I knew it'd be futile. Aunt Lucy was just as despicable as the worst adults in our society. She had never once laid a finger on me or Penny, though. Mom makes sure of that. I just wished we could help poor William. I couldn't stand to be around her, so I took Penny to her room and stayed there with her, impatiently waiting for Mom to get home. It felt like forever, but she finally came home. She came straight to Penny's room, quietly asking, "How did it go? Did Aunt Lucy behave herself? I told her about poor William, and that she yelled a little. Mom pursed her lips, nodding before kissing Penny, then me. I'll be right back. She went to have a word with Aunt Lucy. It was always the same, Mom scolding, Aunt Lucy complaining before grabbing William and stomping off. Mom came back, hugging us both. I'm sorry she's like that. We knew there was nothing she could do about it, so Penny and I didn't complain. Mom changed the subject, asking how our day was. Penny told Mom all about it while she helped us with our evening routine. I didn't like being so dependent, but Mom never made it a big deal, talking cheerfully as she helped me into my sleeper. Penny started whining, and Mom hurried back to her. I heard Penny saying her disposals hurt, and Mom gently soothing her. Penny and I are so lucky to have our mom. I always feel that way, but after dealing with Aunt Lucy, I'm reminded just how lucky we really are. At bedtime, Mom helped me into my bed before kissing me. Her soft voice was tender and loving as she whispered, "Sleep well and dream big. I love you." I wanted to hug and kiss her back, but all I could do was tell her, "I love you too, Mom." Mom quietly left my room, and I could hear her singing Penny to sleep. I woke up in the middle of the night, a dream lingering in my mind. A beautiful, blue-eyed girl smiling at me, smoothing her long brown hair from her face. I handed her a strange adornment, her gorgeous face lighting up as she took it, and overwhelming euphoria surging through me. I fell back asleep quickly, happily dreaming about Scarlet. End of chapter 1.